Hi, it's Norman Kochnick here in Sydney, Australia. In fact, I'm at the Crown Plaza of Coogee down near towards the beach, and I'm here today. I've got one of my first guests will be um, Gil. He's Gurkarat Gil. He's been on a number of the programs with me, especially regarding India. But it's good to have an Indian perspective on a match which is between England and New Zealand. The reason why, because England are there, but New Zealand have one eye on this match, but they're also going to have another eye on the World Test Championship coming up in only a matter of less than 2 weeks. So good to have you here, Gil. How are you?
I'm good, Norman. Thanks for having me here, and it's good to be back on a show with you because we were doing shows during the IPL. So good to take a break and come back to discussing cricket again and seeing cricket, being resumed again. So yeah,
Absolutely.
very happy that Test cricket is back, and the time also is such that you can watch it in peace. It starts at around in the afternoon in as per India's time, and then it goes on till late evening. So you're busy in the evening. You have something to watch and something to do.
That's true. And it's an intriguing match being at Lords, of course, between England and New Zealand. We've had 2 days of cricket already. We've had a great deal of discussion around, in particular, Devon Conway's batting. He's been absolutely a revelation, broken so many records with his 200 runs on the dot. Unfortunately, got run out, but I think he'd be quite happy with his 200 runs. I don't think he'd be disappointed at all. Hey, look, he reminded me of so many players, from Alistair Cook to even Philip Hughes. A lot of steadiness about his batting, extremely impressive. And even Michael Hussey, who started his batting for Australia at the age of 30 plus. So Devon Conway being 29 is very close to that. Very impressive. And in a total of 378, scoring 200 is a mighty amount of runs. Imagine if Devon Conway got out for a cheap score. How many runs would New Zealand have scored? It's worth considering. So what's your
Yeah,
take so far?
of course, what I've seen of the pitch so far, I think it's not your typical Lord's wicket where the ball moves around a little bit more. It's slightly moved around, lesser than what it usually does. The other thing is that the pace has also been slightly on the slower side, which is why only when someone like a Mark Wood has bowled in short when you've thought that the batsmen have been rushed for pace because we saw Neil Wagner also trying out the short stuff in the third session later on, after bowling his first 4 5 overs, but he wasn't really troubling the batsman with his short stuff, which he usually does. So it was slightly on the slower side. It was slightly flat, but you have to give credit to Devon Conway for the way he batted. 200 runs on debut, regardless of where you bat, is a tremendous feat. And when you see his background and how he's done it, playing domestic cricket in South Africa, then giving up everything, moving to New Zealand, then he also coached school children for a little while, then came into the New Zealand setup, and he's really not a opener in first class cricket. So to do that is a mighty achievement, and to become only the seventh batsman in more than 2400 tests to score a double hundred on debut is a very fine achievement that I think he can be proud of. Hopefully, it doesn't remain the best innings of his career. Hopefully, there are a lot more hundreds and double hundreds coming his way in whatever career that he has from here on. He's debuted later than usual because 29 is not the kind of age where people make their debuts. So they're still hoping that he has another 6 to 7 years of cricket left in him. And for New Zealand's sake, he does well because there's going to be a time when the likes of Ross Taylor are going to retire. He's not getting any younger. So you need solidity in that batting order. BJ Watling is anyway going to retire after the World Test Championship. So you need as many solid players as you can in that test setup, and hopefully this is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And look, there's so much more to this innings as well. It was at Lords. Whoever can imagine playing their first Test match, not only for their country, but also at Lords. And then on top of that, getting your name on the honours board in a Lord's dressing room is the pinnacle of all cricketers. There are a number of cricketers that didn't make that. I think, if I'm not wrong, Tendulkar has not scored a century at Lords. I think I'm not mistaken in saying that. I mean, he scored centuries all over the place, but I don't think he scored a century at Lords. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to
Tendulkar,
check on that.
Tendulkar hasn't, Ponting hasn't, Callis hasn't, probably Brian Lara hasn't as well. So it's a
Incredible.
long list of cricketers. It's a long list of cricketers who haven't. I think if I'm not wrong, even someone like Wasim Akram and Javed Miadad also don't have it. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that Sachin and Ponting don't have it. Even Virat Kohli so far hasn't had it. Probably it changes this summer. Virat's played two test matches in Lords and he couldn't get it on the board. Rahul Dravid managed to get on his board in his very last test match at Lords, which turned out to be his last test match at Lords. So it is something that a lot of players crave for, but they're not able to get that. But I think if you just take the if you just take the magnitude of the stadium outside and judge the innings just on the merit of it, even there were few points at where you looked like that Conway had gotten into some sort of struggle and some sort of shell, because he really didn't know. It did look like that he could get out at any moment, but he was brave enough to face that spell, take out that period of time, and then give the respect that the bowlers deserve, and then cash on to whatever came his way. And this is something which very a lot of good batsmen do usually. If you look at uh, the innings of Joe Root so far, Joe Root was 18 of 68 at one point of time, and by the time he had played 100 deliveries, he was 42. So it shows that all good batsmen need to have that stomach for the fight when the going is getting tough, when bowlers are on top, which a lot of great batsmen do. Someone like a Joe Root does it very regularly, and but what you have to account for is that someone like a Joe Root is also a very skilled batsman. He doesn't even need to take a lot of risk to sort of change to keep the scoreboard ticking. Yesterday he scored 5 boundaries, and out of those 5 boundaries, four of them were on the cut shot. He hardly drove because he knew that the ball was swinging, with Colin D. Grandhome, taking the ball away from him, bowling in the corridor of uncertainty. So he only went for boundaries when the ball was pitched in short, or he was given any room. Similarly, Rory Burns at the same time went started to go after his shots when the short bowling was attempted at him, and he was comfortable with it because of the pitch of the pace, like I spoke earlier. So a good day of test match yesterday, because it started off looking like New Zealand could really get away from England and coast somewhere between 400 to 450, and then at one point of time it looked like that New Zealand wouldn't reach 350 because they were 288 for three, and then they were 294 for seven. So from there on, again a good recovery by New Zealand, and then two quick wickets by New Zealand would have put England under a lot of pressure. So it was good batting in the last session by Burns and Root to make sure that there wasn't any damage. So, like I really think that the first session today is going to hold a lot of value in terms of how the game progresses. If England are able to come out without a loss of any wicket in the first session, then this game is brilliantly set up. But at the same time, if they lose, say, one or two odd wickets, or probably more than two, then they could be in real trouble of giving New Zealand a lead of 100 plus.
Well, they're going to miss Ben Stokes. There's no doubt about that. Dan Lawrence, I don't think's at all a solid batsman at this point in the stage of his career. I think he's very loose. They got a fairly long bowling tail as well in terms of batting. There's a fair few. They haven't got the likes of Chris Wokes or Ben Folkes or even Ben Stokes. There's so many of the players that are around. They've got, in fact, 7 or 8 players out of the England team. Let's just go through them, by the way. And I should make this clear. Sam Curran, Ben Stokes, Folkes, Wokes, Jofra Archer. You also got the likes of, there's quite a few more. Who else is there? There's a few other players that I've got offhand. There's another two that are notably out of the squad. Obviously Besto and Butler as well. That makes 7. 7 significant players that are not available for England that would have to damage both sides. The all-rounder perspective is particularly one. New Zealand are in the driver's seat, you're right. My concern at this point in time is really around the lack of a spinner. As you know, Joe Root did bowl, but I don't think he's quite up to being a spin bowler for the long term. They could have easily have had Jack Leach there. They didn't have him. Now Satner's in the New Zealand, so I think that's going to be key, as you said, in the fourth innings. There's a lot riding on this innings from England. They've got to score and score well. They've got to be able to score it significantly to go close to that 378 total that England have to chase at this point in time. What is intriguing to me is I keep thinking about Conway's innings, and if he didn't score his 200, what would New Zealand's score have been? What do you think? I mean, Ross Taylor and Williamson may have stepped up to the occasion and had a more significant innings, but I think Conway's innings was so significant, you could well have seen a match around the 250 mark, and that would have been a lot more of an intriguing test match in terms of the close. But again, Conway, double century, first innings at Lords, gets his name on the board, many haven't. Facing the likes of Anderson and Broad, who are both very much, as we know, significant England bowlers on their home turf with more than 1,000 wickets between each other. It's quite a significant batting performance to open against the likes of those bowlers and actually counter their bowling. What is significant for India, though, Gil, I believe, is that India actually are fully able to see the likes of a batter letting the ball go outside off stump. Even Williamson to an extent, and the New Zealand batters in general, and even the English batters, are letting the ball go, not allowing anything outside off stump, they're letting it go. Whereas the Indian batsmen notoriously play at that ball, don't they? That you could arguably say that the dozen is Pujara. The rest, including Kohli, are notably batters that actually play that line and are very commonly sticking the ball to slip because they're capable of doing so. They've got the batting techniques to actually still connect to a ball even though it's moving or swinging away. And that's significant. I hope, and I'm pretty sure, a resounding discussion with the Indian batsman has to be to not play balls outside of stump, to actually let them go.
See, I think it's got to be a combination of everything. You really can't be letting loose deliveries outside the off stump also go. Someone like a Pujara can afford to let it go because he just his game is revolved around minimizing all levels of risk. But someone like a Virat Kohli, you also have to see where the impact points of batsmen are. Ajinkya Rahane is a predominantly back foot player who can play on the rise and can play square off the wicket well. While as far as someone like a Virat Kohli is concerned, he's always looked to cover the swing by standing outside the crease. His impact point is many a times 2 or 2.5 meters away from the stumps. So that is something which has been that is something which has been a key to his batting. And although he's shown a lot more restraint, but it's just like that his weakness is his greatest strength. He's gotten out sometimes, playing the flick shot as well in limited overs cricket when he's gotten out LBW. But if you see his conversion rate or his success with it, there's all the more reason for him to keep playing that flick that he does, or play that cover drive. It's like we know how good Joe Root is while playing the cut shot. But if he gets out, say once or twice playing the cut shot, you wouldn't really say that it's something which he shouldn't do, or it's a shot that he should stop playing altogether. So you have to play the percentages and then see. And if somehow the percentages also don't work some point of time, then probably then go back and realize. But I don't think it's something that you should straight away say, okay, this is something we shouldn't be doing.
Hear me, girl.
I guess we'll have to tell the viewers to okay.
Are you able to hear me, girl?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
No, sorry, I'll just hear me clearly.
I can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So the reality is that we had a bit of a system glitch. As long as you can hear me clearly, you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is while we're talking, just to say hello to some people that are online. Dimanthi Watagadera, I know of her. She's in Sri Lanka. Great cricketer that she is. She's watching our channel. It's great. We've got quite a few. We've got Shirari Gayatri. He's also very much there. Manu John, regulars on the show. Terence Aldrin also. England bowling is more worrisome than the batting. That's an interesting perspective. The fact is, would you? I don't think the England bowling is necessarily worrisome. The fact they haven't got a spinner is significant. That is a significant play. But I think Anderson bowled pretty well. I think the reality was that New Zealand batted well, in particular Conway. I don't think it was so much the England bowlers not bowling well. I think it was more that the actual, the batters particularly handled the conditions very well. Nichols batted very well as well. I even thought that Latham handled it particularly well. They had a very strong opening partnership and looked particularly good. Ross Taylor and Williamson unknowingly didn't play that well this time around, but I think they did very well. But yeah, I wonder how that second innings is going to go. I think New Zealand's in the ascendancy. I just wonder whether, in fact, as you said, the first session on day 3 will be crucial for England. England, if they can get through the first session without losing a wicket, then they're in a position where they'll be very much in control and be able to perhaps post a score which will somewhat match. In fact, Chris Vernon, who's very often on the show, actually made a very clear point to say that he thinks it's going to be a draw. And that's dependent on England batting well.
See, I think
What's your
I think
thoughts?
England definitely. I think if England definitely missed a trick by not playing Jack Leach, because Jack Leach troubled one of the best players of spin bowling in Cheteshwar Pujara, and it's not like that the manner of dismissal was same. He actually got him caught in the crease, being neither forward nor backward. Got him caught in slips on a couple of occasions. Then he troubled Rohit Sharma as well. So there was all the reason for Jack Leach to play this test match. Him not playing this test match was obviously error on Joe Root's and the management's part. Apart from that, I don't think England's bowling was a concern. Like you mentioned, Conway batted well, so did Henry Nichols. And if England's bowling would have been a concern, then they would have conceded at least 100 runs more. But the fact that they were able to come back, let's not forget that New Zealand were 288 for 3 at one stage. From 288 for 3 to be dismissed for 378 was a very good bowling effort. Mark Wood was brilliant in his spell, yesterday morning, where he got those 3 wickets. He got the wicket of Nichols, then he got the wicket of Watling. Watling is someone who's sort of a backbone for the New Zealand batting lineup. He almost scores every time, especially whenever New Zealand is in a crisis. Then he got the wicket. Then he got one more wicket, and Holland D. Grandhome was also dismissed quite early. So I don't think that the problem was with the bowling, except for not picking up a spinner. The fact of the matter is, like you mentioned earlier, there are too many players who are missing this test match for England. There is no Joss Butler, there is no Johnny Bairstow, there is no Sam Curran as well. There is no Chris Wokes also. And the players who are to follow are Oli Pope, Dan Lawrence, and Bracey. Bracey's on debut. There is no Ben Folks as well. So it's just that the batting has a lot of inexperience. We still don't know a lot about how Bracey will go, how Oli Pope will come along. England would hope that Oli Pope does well, because if he does well, then it gives them a lot of confidence going into the Test series against India, because Indian bowling lineup is also one of the best in the world. If you see, the pace attack covers almost all aspects except for not having a left armer. But there are the likes of Ravindra Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin to make up for it. So Oli Pope scoring some runs here is going to go a long way in giving the confidence to the English setup that Oli Pope can be a number 6 batsman come the series versus India. Like you also mentioned, Ben Stokes is missing. So more than the bowling, it's definitely a batting which is the concern, especially in terms of experience. The bowling, like I said earlier, it's been a huge miss to not play Jack Leach. You really would play someone like a Jack Leach who's troubled Cheteshwar Pujara of all people. And let's not forget how good Cheteshwar Pujara was in Australia, where he batted very well against someone like a Nathan Lyon and in Australia. So that is definitely a miss. And I suppose in the second test match, Nathan Lyon will be Nathan Lyon, sorry, beg your pardon. Jack Leach will definitely make it to the English 11, and one of the Pacers would probably go out. If it's Mark Wood or Robinson, we don't know. Could be Mark Wood because Craig Overton is going to come back, and yesterday news came that England are going to drop Ollie Robinson for the next Test match because of the tweets that came out. So we never know, but I certainly feel that Jack Leach would come into the 11.
So Ben Stokes is several weeks away, isn't he? Because he's injured himself. He certainly wasn't available for these two tests. He'll have some time to be able to be ready for the full series, for the 5 test series, and that'll be a significant inclusion. But I just love saying Stokes, Wokes, and Folks. 3 incredible names that roll off the tongue there that are all missing. Um, we've got Munchie in line now. Munchie's our resident English person today, and he says day one the sun was shining and the breeze was not conducive to swing bowling. Correct? Yesterday was better and more movement, but Conway just batted well. As I said, as I resonated with me, Conway's batting was substantial on both days. He really was. He was significant. The basic, you could almost argue that New Zealand are in that position only because of Conway. And I really think, I mean, obviously Williamson and Ross Taylor can bat, but I think Conway's set the scene up beautifully. I just wonder, is this the day we'll also see another debutant play well, namely James Bracey? Having had David Graveney on the show yesterday, and David Graveney's had a lot to do with the Curran boys. They stayed at his place, he nurtured them. He also had a lot to do with James Bracey, and he said very high things about James Bracey. James Bracey could well have been in the opening 3 batting positions in the team. So he's that significant a bat, even though he's batting as a keeper and at batting number 7. He is a significant batter down the order, and I actually predict he'll do well. I've got no confidence in Dan Lawrence. Ollie Pope, it depends on how things go, but I think James Bracey could be the one that could actually provide that sufficient batting strength to get them through to a total on or around that 300 mark. I don't actually predict that they'll get much more than that. I think that the New Zealand bowlers will bowl quite well. Yeah, and that's a good point that Munchie's bringing up. Given the start they had, New Zealand will be upset that they didn't reach 400. They had a bit of a stumble there in the mid. They lost, 5 to 30, I believe. It was quite a
They lost 4 wickets for
actually.
6 runs.
They really
288 for 3 to 294 for 7. 4 wickets for 6 runs.
Exactly.
But it happens. It happens in Test cricket, especially if you see Mark Wood was in a brilliant spell of bowling. He was really getting to move the ball away, coming wide from the crease. If you see how he set up BJ Watling, he was coming from wide of the crease, taking the ball away, pitching it just outside the off stump, and till that point of time, BJ Watling was looking to leave the deliveries because he knew that it would not come in the line of the stumps. Then he slipped one in right in the line of stumps and took it very marginally away to take the edge. Perhaps you could say that someone like a BJ Watling could have played it straight rather than going for a flick through mid wicket, but we also have to see from the angle from which the ball was coming in. He was coming wide of the crease, so your instinct as a batsman is like, okay, he's coming from wide of the crease. The ball is definitely going to come in, but the ball left him and took the outside edge, and he was caught in the slips. So it has more to do with Mark Wood definitely bowling really well, and then he surprised Henry Nichols with a very well-directed bouncer where Nichols just couldn't get out of it and went for the shot, and the field was set for it. So you wouldn't really call it a collapse where New Zealand lost wickets to poor shots. It was more to do with some very good bowling by Mark Wood.
Exactly. The reality is that I still think this is an intriguing match. And India, who are all in Southampton now, as we saw, they arrived yesterday, I believe. They've been acclimatising. They look very relaxed. They'll be watching with great intent how the players play, both from New Zealand and from England. What is intriguing for them, they're playing against both sides in the upcoming series. It's going to be very, very exciting. I think there'll be a lot of developments there. I think the England series will be particularly exciting with 5 test matches, with Stokes, Jofra Archer due back at some stage later on in the time, and Curran and the like. It'll be an interesting series. I do think, though, India have a lot of difficulty against New Zealand in the match at Southampton. If for nothing else, the fact that New Zealand will have the runs on the board, having played 2 test matches, Psychologically, that will affect India, but I think India is strong enough to come through. It was interesting. I did a poll, like a questionnaire, let's call it, on the streets of Sydney only today, yesterday, in fact, and it was exactly 7-7. Seven were going for New Zealand, 7 were going for India. Fairly evenly poised, actually. I think there's a lot of confidence in the way that India beat Australia here early in the year, and they think they can still come out and do that in the big match. It's going to be an exciting World Test Championship, let's be honest. Regardless of the build-up, regardless of the COVID-19 restrictions and all the issues that surround whether those teams are worthy of being there, which I think they are, it'll bring down a situation that it'll be a great match. I'm looking forward to it immensely. I hope it's not a tie. I hope it's not a draw. There must be a result. I don't want to have shared World Test Championships. That's rubbish. I'm totally against that. Honestly, at this early stage, Gil, who do you think's going to win that match between India and what's your early prediction of the WTC?
See, I have the one thing that I have to say is that having just one test match for a competition that is spiraled over or spread over 2 years is something which doesn't really cut it. And because one test match can go either ways. It's I what I would personally want is that the top two sides play a three-match test series, and then you decide who wins. But really can't change the format right now. But as far as this one test match goes, you have to give it. You have to say that New Zealand's are the favorites because of the reasons you mentioned. They've already been there, played two test matches before the final. Their batsmen are, so what happens is that whenever you are traveling overseas or whenever you are traveling to a different country, there are some instincts as a batsman and as a bowler that you have when you're playing in home country. So say someone who's been born and brought up in England, if he's playing in England or if she's playing in England, that bowler knows that the natural line and length that he has to bowl is a slightly fuller length because you have to allow for the ball to swing in. For a bowler who's born and brought up in Australia, the natural line is to bowl straight at stumps, mix it up with a well-directed bouncer because you are more reliant on the carry than the movement of the pitch. Okay, so you really don't need that much time to adjust to the congestions. But if you are traveling overseas, say if you travel if a bowler from England or Australia travels to the subcontinent, then you have to adjust to what are your instincts otherwise. Okay, so that will obviously take time, and that is where New Zealand have an advantage, both in terms of their batsmen and bowlers having a lot more time in those English conditions and more recent time because the batsmen know already, the instincts have changed. They know which deliveries to leave at, and they know which kind of deliveries to avoid bowling to make it easier for the batsman. Indian players they wouldn't have played anything for an year for a month and a half because IPL got called off in I think uh, late April or probably first week of May, and from there to June 18, there hasn't been any cricket for the Indian cricketers. So you have to say that the favorites are New Zealand at this point of time, but you never know what might happen with the quality side because, like we saw earlier this year in India versus Australia in the Test match at Gabba and then at Sydney, Australia were the favorites considering the number of injuries India were carrying, all the issues that were there. A 300 odd target has never been chased at Gabba. So you really can't rule out any team at this point of time, but you have to say that New Zealand are the favorites without a doubt.
Now, Munchies, who's a regular, he brought up some points regarding both Sibley and Crawley did what the Indian batsmen I suggested earlier would do, chasing balls they shouldn't. Whereas New Zealanders were a lot better at that. They handled that situation a lot better than promised. And that is concerning. That is a true test of the wickets. Australia is guilty of it as well. Many of the times Australia is batted in England and other sides, including India. They've got to be aware to let that ball go. That's the primary lesson they must take from these matches. And New Zealand will also try to exploit that in the South African match. You watch. Look, I don't agree with you on one thing. You did say, Gil, about having three matches. I like the excitement of just one match. It's all on the line. You can't use excuses. It's there and there. There's an edge to one game. A final, let's be honest, should be one game. A final is one game. I know it puts pressure on that game, but I believe one game is the way a final should be played.
You know, it's funny that you say that because Australia, for the longest period of time, have had best of three finals in the Tri Series that they host. They've had best of three finals for the
Oh,
longest time. So I understand that excitement which comes with one game and winner takes all in one game. But my point is sometimes when it's just one game and the shorter the format is, uh, the chance of a side which is less which is less strong or slightly weaker becomes more. So if you have just one game, the chances of the less deserving side winning are more than what would happen, say, in a best of three finals, or and especially when you're looking at the shorter formats. If you're still taking test matches, there are chances that it would not happen. But if you look at a T20 game or a ODI game, then the chances of this happening are far more than what it would happen in a test match.
yeah. Look, don't forget a test match is meant to be 5 days. Now, in 5 days, the game will ebb and flow, and the war of attrition occurs. That's why I think it's been one match. I mean, again, imagine an FA Cup in soccer or any other sport having 3 matches. It just doesn't work. I really like the fact they've got one.
No, but I'll tell you why it is different from soccer is because cricket is the only game where the toss plays such a huge factor. The weather conditions play a huge factor. When you're playing football, the pitches across are more or less the same. You have the same dimensions. You really aren't affected by the cloud cover or the dryness or the kind of soil that is there at the stadium. Cricket is a very weather oriented and a pitch oriented game. So uh, we also have to take that into account. And I don't think any game has this much influence of the toss as much as cricket does. So that is why I say that if you play three games, if you play a best of three finals, the luck and all irregularities or all what you call it in terms of statistics. Or abnormalities or the outliers, they are more or less going to even out in a best of three finals. In one game it is possible that the outliers will have a lot more influence than what they're supposed to if you just go by numbers.
I agree to disagree with that one because I'm still a fan of the one. And Munchie has mentioned who's our English counterpart. I don't think we will see Archer this summer, and that's interesting. Munchie might want to share as to this chronic elbow injury is more than just an injury you recover from. He may be in severe doubt in the long term playing at all. We're hearing a lot of facts about the chronic nature of the elbow injury. Maybe every time he bowls, it'll flare up. So he may only be able to play one match, then have many matches off, which will serve no purpose. The other thing Munchie has talked about, the weather is currently forecast to be dry in Southampton for the next 2 weeks, after several weeks of so-called rainy weather, damp weather. So he's talked about that. This more of the dry weather, better for India. So that's an interesting point that the actual dryness may help India. You know what? I must say, Gil, all the odds are stacking up to say that New Zealand should win because they played 2 test matches, they've been here longer, etc., etc. But there's a certain calmness about the Indian camp, even in their interviews with both Ravi Shastri and Kohli, and the way they're leisurely around Southampton. I think they're a lot more used to these condition changes than you may give them credit for. And New Zealand have got a certain mental block about finals. We know that. They've lost matches against Australia and obviously England, and a number of finals throughout the years in ICC tournaments. The pressure's on. There's more of an expectation for New Zealand to win this than for India to win this, which puts the pressure back on New Zealand in a most bizarre way, if that makes any sense. I think that
it,
India may well have, yeah, go ahead,
it does. It does because see the point that you mentioned about Shastri and Kohli. See, there is no doubt about this that the self belief in this Indian side is immense. I think it's probably the most self assured Indian side that I have ever seen in the 15 to 17 years of cricket that I have been watching. Because Virat Kohli is always If you see Virat Kohli, you will never come across him making any excuse, whether it be about the pitch, him not winning the toss, batsman not doing well, umpiring decisions not going his way. He's really not the kind who makes any excuses. So the self belief in the skills of the team is immense with this Indian side. And you rightly mentioned that it's almost bizarre that New Zealand are the favorites as opposed to what they've been so far. If you look back at the 2015 World Cup, if you look back at the 2019 World Cup, or even if you look back at the semi-finals of the World T20 in 2016, they had won all four games in the group stages, and they were to take on England in the semi-final, and then England beat them quite easily in the semis. So you're right here that it's almost bizarre that they are the favorites. So it would be interesting to know how they handle this pressure of being the favorites, because they're not used to being the favorites. They're obviously mostly the underdog. If you look back at the 2011 and the 2007 World Cup as well, I don't think many expected them to reach the semis, but they still did. So it's like you said, it's bizarre, and it would be interesting to see how they manage that. And it could go the other way as well, because when you're not in a position to play with a certain amount of pressure that comes with being the favorites, then funny things can happen, and it has happened in the past to a lot of teams.
Very true. Look, but we mustn't forget the Indian batting lineup is extremely stable batting lineup. There's no concerns about that. Devon Conway, even though he got a double hundred, is he going to continue opening? It looks like he will. He'll have to open for the next match. But will he open for the match in the World Test Championship? Is that the plan? It's going to be interesting what they do with Conway, because he quite frankly likes to bat down the order. I'd leave him right there where he is, actually. But it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens. And as you said earlier, I hope he hasn't left his best performance to his first match. It's very hard to back up an innings after scoring a double century. It's not. There's not too many players in the world that have actually continued doing that. We had some examples with Joe Root, of course, and Kohli in the recent years, but I don't know whether it's necessarily something that's that easy to do. So that'll be intriguing as well. I mean, look, it doesn't matter. Devon Conway will be ecstatic. He's deserved his double hundred. He batted fantastically. I just have a sense of uncertainty with what's happened with the World Test Championship. Even though New Zealand are expected to win, India just have this every time I look at them, there's a glint in their eyes and say, "We've got this. We've got this." It's like this air about them. I don't know why. Okay, let's have a quick look at the bowling lineup for that World Test Championship. Do you think Siraj will join the fray? Will he join Ishant Sharma Shami and the likes of Bumrah as the fourth pacer, and will they only have one spinner? What's your early thoughts on that?
No, I think if the weather is dry and if the pitch stays dry, India will play two spinners. So you also have to look at Ravindra Jadeja as a as a good option to bat at number seven. Also, he's not just a bowler alone. If it was just a bowler alone, then you would have thought of India playing four paces. But I suppose India will play both spinners and they will play only three paces. What you also have to keep in mind is that someone like a Ravichandran Ashwin cannot be left out. If you just look at the number of left-handers that are there in the New Zealand side, there is Devon Conway, there is Tom Latham, there is Henry Nichols. So there are three batsmen in the top six who are left-handers. Then there's Mitchell Santner as well, who's another left-hander. So you need both, and then you have the likes of Ross Taylor, Kane Williamson, and others who are right-handers. So you need Ravindra Jadeja, and from whatever little we've seen of Kane Williamson, that even though he's able to play late, there's obviously the trouble that will come in with someone like a Ravindra Jadeja, bowling to him, because Ravindra Jadeja doesn't turn the ball much. And sometimes batsmen are not able to figure out if the ball will come in with the angle or go away. So he becomes a very important bowler, just from that aspect to bowl to the likes of Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson. I suppose both of them will play, and India will go in with three paces. And the only call that I think at this point of time seems to be taken is whether India play Mohammad Shami or whether they play Mohammad Siraj. One of Shami or Siraj will play, because Ishant Sharma also has a very good record against left-handers. If you look back at the last two series, which India last three series in which Alistair Cook was playing for England. If you look back at the 2018 series and the series in India before that in 2016, Ishant Sharma really troubled Alistair Cook from the around the wicket angle. And if you can trouble someone like Alistair Cook, then you can trouble most left-handers in business. So I suppose Ishant Sharma will also play. It would only be a call between Mohammad Shami and Mohammad Siraj come the final.
There's a lot of discussion by Virat Kohli in the press conferences around Siraj and a certain amount of backing for Siraj. So it does sound like he will play. Now, whether it'll be with the full complement of three other bowlers or it'll be him in place of Shami, we have to be seen. But it'll be intriguing to see what happens there. But you'd have to argue that Bumrah and Ishant Sharma are certainties as long as they're fit. And it's up to whether Shami. Now, Shami looked pretty good the last match he did play that I saw him play. He looked like he was fully recovered. Okay, now there's some questions here. Well, Munshi being the local contact for us today, in England the weather is also a huge factor. And if it's dry, as he's saying, you may see two spinners almost definitely play from maybe even, well, certainly the Indian side, maybe even New Zealand will have Santner. I'm not sure whether Sodhi's there, but he's also another player of great note. And as I said earlier, the surgery on the elbow of Jofra Archer is quite serious. It's a chronic injury. The surgery is quite invasive, and he will have to have a careful amount of rehab. I may keep him for the Ashes series. You never know. He may need a long recovery, so it will be interesting to see what happens there. I like what this Devraj Max has said. We may say that conditions suit New Zealand, but this is Test cricket. India will be all over New Zealand, and it may be a one-sided final. You never know. You really don't know. It's intriguing. I don't know about you, Gil, but I find Test cricket more and more interesting. The last 6 to 12 months, every Test match has got a twist or a turn because of the fact that India's come to the fore, Australia's fallen away somewhat, England and New Zealand have raised their stakes. It's evening up the playing field a lot more, would you argue? And there's a certain, no longer do you say, oh, the local side will win, hands down. It's not any more a certainty at all. I find that extremely interesting. I rather like that. I've always been bored with Australia winning 5-0 in Australia, India doing well in India, and England doing well in England. I don't like that. I want it to be more out of the box, so to speak. Judson Hans, I haven't had you before too much, so Wagner will play an important role. Yeah, Wagner's a very significant player, I must say. Test cricket certainly is my go as well. Are we going to say, Gil?
So I was saying that obviously test matches have become closer because if you see almost all teams have very good fast bowlers. India have, like we discussed, Bumrah, Ishant, Shami, Siraj. There's Umesh Yadav as well. Then the likes of Shardul Thakur, uh, Prasidh Krishna, Natarajan, Saini are there in the wings. So you obviously have resources. Then Australia have the likes of Pat Cummins and Hazelwood. Then England also have a battery of cases. If you see, there's James Anderson, there's Broad, there's Vokes, there's Oli Stone, there is Robinson, there's Mark Wood, there's Jofra Archer. So there is no dearth of talent in terms of fast bowling around the world. If you look at the New Zealand side, there's Southey, there's Bolt, there's Wagner, and there's the option of playing Colin D. Grandhome as the fifth bowler. And there are bowlers like Matt Henry also in the reserves. You look at Pakistan. There's someone like a Shaheen Shah Afridi. There's Hassan Ali who does well, and if you look at say South Africa, there's Kagiso Rabada, there's Lungi Ngidi. So there are obviously players coming in. There's Andy Nokia. So it's only happening because the resources of fast bowling are very good across the countries that play Test cricket, and some spinners have also started to do well. And at the same time, batsmen aren't the same what they used to be. They aren't the same defensive batsmen. You really don't see draws because the advent of T20s has led to batsmen becoming more aggressive. Another thing that has changed Test cricket is that in the 90s and the early 2000s, if batsmen didn't know how to play spin from the hand, they could have just padded, put their front foot out and padded the ball away, hiding the bat behind the pad and not be given out IBW. But after the DRS has come in, batsmen are given out LBW that way as well. So they really can't do that. So there are obviously, these things that have changed Test match cricket, which has fastened up the pace of the game, which is a good thing because it allows for more contest, it allows for more result, and when all of this happens, it makes up for exciting cricket.
Look, it's funny how you mentioned a number of sides with great bowling attacks. You didn't mention Australia, and very honestly, I look at the Australian bowling attack
No, I did. I
domestically.
mentioned Cummings and
We've got
Hazelwood.
obviously Hazel start. Did okay, all right, but no, but I'm going to mention them differently because I actually think that you take Hazelwood, Cummings, Stark, with Nathan Lyon, seasoned bowlers, done very well, got great stats. But what's behind them? What's behind them is intriguing to me. You've got James Pattinson, yes, he's there, prone to injury as well. You know what? There's not a lot behind them. There's a whole lot of guys that play one day cricket or T20 cricket, but Test cricket bowlers, I tell you what, we're lacking. If like Nessa is one of the blokes that they're putting their hat on. Honestly, he's a steady bowler, but he's not anything too excited about. He won't win your matches. There's a distinct lack of player behind. If we have one injury to a Cummings or a Hazelwood or Stark, even just one injury, we're going to be down on bowlers, especially in a 5 Test match series in Australia. And you look at the way they played that last Test match together, they were fairly ineffective. They didn't exactly. I mean, obviously India batted well, but they were relatively ineffective. I think Australia, out of all the teams you've mentioned, had the weakest bowling lineup as far as depth is concerned. Maybe not the
See,
three that are up there bowling, but as far as depth is concerned.
I feel somewhere Australia need to
I
start
can't hear
looking
you.
past
Go.
Mitchell. Yeah, I think somewhere Australia need to start looking past Mitchell Stark now in Test matches because he's been erratic. He loses his line, and when he gives runs, he releases the pressure which is maintained by the other three bowlers, and they start to they should start looking to invest someone like a Jai Richardson for Test matches because he's someone who looks robust, has a smooth action, can be in for the long haul, but they need to start look past Mitchell Stark in Test matches for sure because he gets those wickets, but a lot of the wickets that he takes are of lower order batsmen or batsmen who are 9, 10, 11. His impact is definitely not the same in Test matches.
Absolutely. I've got one concern. Just letting you know up front, Gil. If my battery runs dead, I've got a backup phone ready to go. So you might have a moment where I might have to change something. Not just yet, but all right. So I can see Himanshu Chaudhary's joined us. He's saying good evening. And we've got, again, Shreya Guy who's just said Test match. It's just alive for future decades. More extraordinary like how Ashes matches all the time. What he's saying there is the advent of 5 Test match series, I think, has to become a mainstay. England and India have got that now. Australia and India will have that as well. And I would imagine also, um, yeah, so we're going another 10 minutes. We'll go just on the hour. So the reality is that I'd like to see more 5 Test match series. You might argue when Sri Lanka play Bangladesh, it shouldn't happen, but I think it should. They need to be given the opportunity to play them and test their ability at batting longer and deeper into a series, or bowling for that matter. I think we need to instigate more and more 5 Test series where possible. It's an ICC decision, I
If
know,
not
but
five, then three. If not five, then three. Because what happens if, say, this Test series at the end of 2 Test matches is 1-1? Then what happens? So there needs to be minimum of 3 Test matches for sure in every series.
welcome, Siddharth.
Hi, Norman. Sorry that I was caught up in meetings and lunch today.
That's fine. It's very good timing because Gil's got to go in about 10 minutes' time, so the transition is beautiful. It's almost seamless as long as my battery doesn't run out. I'm actually at the Crown Plaza Hotel here in Coogee on the beach. I have around, I
Wow.
didn't actually tell Gil this, but I had within 10 feet of me, I had the entire Richmond Australian rules rugby, not rugby league, AFL side, which is our form of Aussie rules. That Richmond team has won several competitions in a row, and they're staying here. And on top of that,
Wow.
the New South Wales, which is a substantial team of rugby league blokes, were here. I'm surrounded by sporting teams, and this is where all the cricketers stay when they're in Sydney as well. And I'm not. If I look out the window, I've obviously Dave Warner walking past with his wife, or even Pat Cummings. They're all living around here. They're all out enjoying the first weekend, I think, of freedom. So I'm very blessed. You didn't see the entire Richmond AFL team, which is like the pinnacle of rugby. It's like the top AFL team. We're sitting here because they can't be in Melbourne because Melbourne actually has a form of lockdown occurring, a small COVID lockdown, and the whole team has jumped up to here. I've actually interviewed one of the guys yesterday because I was on the streets of Sydney. I had a ball. I'm interviewing people in cars. Who's going to win between England and New Zealand, or India and New Zealand World Championship? I kept on picking New Zealanders. I go, what is this? Get back home. What are you doing here? And I'm joking with them in cars. It was magnificent. It's very popular. You ought to have a look at that video. It's very, very funny. And then one of the AFL players who's 6'9". I felt like I was 2 foot tall. Hilarious. But I've joined up with a number of sporting. I'm cross-pollinating my sport involvement, which is very interesting. We'll have to, Gil and Siddharth, you are both going to be, you need to put up your hand now. Put up your hand. I swear. Repeat after me. Gil, put
I
your hand up.
swear.
I swear.
I swear that I will, that I will.
I will.
That I
Repeat
will.
after me. Pledge allegiance
Pledge
Pledge
allegiance
to the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
South
to the South
Sydney
Sydney
Rabbitohs.
Rabbitohs.
Exactly. All right. Now you're honorary South Sydney Rabbitohs members. That's it. You're not allowed to go for any other side. You have been sworn in now. You have no way of getting out of it. Put your hand down now, Siddharth. The fact is, you will no longer be able to go to any other side because you've pledged allegiance to the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who have been around since 1908, which makes 113 years of playing. So you are now officially red and green, as far as rugby league is concerned. Okay, so whenever you open your mouth about rugby league, you ought to mention one team, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Are you promising me that now? You've pledged allegiance. You can't back down. You can't change your mind. It's done.
But what about international rugby? Oops, I think he's gone.
His battery went off.
Yes, his battery's off.
Should be back soon. What do you think? Where do you think the test match progressing?
This
What do you
England,
think?
New Zealand. Look, if New Zealand doesn't have a collapse in one particular session, even in Lords, they've had collapses. If they don't collapse, then they should win this match. But if they collapse, I don't see England not losing this. Because take out
back,
Conway's
guys. Can you hear me?
200. Yeah, we can. Take out
I'm
Conway's 200, the rest is only 147 runs.
Let me just change over here. Let me just get this sorted.
178.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, 178. Yeah, I can. We can, Norman. We can. 178 runs. So, problems, at least in the first game, at least first day, we have seen problems. Yep. If New Zealand is in the top 2 in the ladder, why are they only playing 2 tests against England? They have played the most 2-test series in the entire World Test Championship. They have played 4. Sri Lanka, West Indies, Pakistan, and 2 tests were supposed to be against Bangladesh, but it got cancelled. And India, 5.
I'm back.
Yep.
That was pretty seamless from one phone to the other. That was pretty good. All right. Sorry. So now you've pledged allegiance, guys. I will be sending you South Sydney Rabbitohs caps, and you must wear them on demand.
I don't wear caps.
Definitely.
You need to send me a turban.
Okay. Okay, a red and green turban. All right, you got it. I'm going to get you a red and green turban. Red with green.
Yeah.
But have you noticed no one, Siddharth and Gil, you haven't commented on my hat. Can you see that?
Eyes on cricket. Yeah.
Yeah.
No need to comment when we can see it so
here.
prominently. Wow.
Exactly. There it is there, and not, and then it's also here, and
At
I've
the
also got
back.
a T-shirt underneath. So I've got at the back now. At the back, I've got something.
No,
I've got
we
even
we
more.
we
There's a picture
we,
of
we
who's
Laurel and Hardy.
Laurel
You
and
got
Hardy. That
Laurel
is
and
actually I
Hardy.
can't get it right here. And who's Laurel and
Oh,
Hardy?
Stan Laurel, Oliver Hardy. I think this is
But who are they really?
Hardy. Who are they?
Chris Vernon and me.
Oh, yes.
Can you see?
Yeah. Yep. Chris.
Gil,
I
can you see
rarely
that?
see Chris smile. That's why I can't make that out to be Stan.
Gil, can you see that? So I've got that. I've got that. I've got this.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've got this. And I've got everything. So you guys when I get my supply, you're going to tell me. You have to tell. I'm going to get a spreadsheet, and I need to know your sizes. All right.
sure. But I can't visualize Chris smiling so much. I've never seen Chris smile that much. That's why I couldn't get that.
All right. Now, so let's get back to the cricket now. The reality is, so now we were talking earlier about the way that Devon Conway has batted fantastically, which we talked about earlier. 200, the significance of that at Lords, and the people that and Gil was talking about it with me, the people that haven't done that, such as Tendulkar, there's a Brian Lara. Who else was there, Gil? Who else did you mention?
Ponting,
I think it was Ponting.
Ponting, Lara,
Amazing.
Callis, they're not on the honors board.
Amazing. They've all scored 10,000 plus runs, yet they haven't scored 100 at Lords. And Devon Conway comes out first innings at 29, bang. Not one, but two, a double 100. Phenomenal.
yeah. Ajit Agarkar has a century.
I'll give you an example. How the hell did he get a
Ajit,
century there? What's going on there? In a test match?
yeah,
Yeah,
109 against England, 2002.
2002.
Amazing.
He was the second after
Now, I'll give you
Ganguly
an
in that era.
example.
Yeah.
No, but Ajit Agarkar is an
I went for
underrated
a tour
batsman.
once.
He also has the fastest 50 for an India in
Yeah,
an ODI.
absolutely. Yes.
But come on, if you had to mention the top 10 Indian batsmen, he wouldn't be included. Come on. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, just take a step back here for a minute. I'll give you. Imagine this. Back in 2000, I can't remember the year. Dulip Mendes and his son Niru. Dulip Mendes, he scored a century for Sri Lanka at Lords, and to walk into that Lords dressing room, the away dressing room, to see his name up there on the board, is probably the most significant memorabilia that you could ever see anywhere of a cricketer. I think Tendulkar would give up many of his centuries if he could have his name up there. He's got a portrait of him. There's a huge portrait of Tendulkar at Lords. So was Viv Richards, and so was I'm sure everyone else. But they don't have that century.
But Norman,
it's quite
Tendulkar technically has 100. He hit 185 for rest of the world against MCC, but that wasn't counted as an
It was
official
an
match.
exhibition game.
It was an exhibition game. Yeah. In
and it doesn't
Anyway,
get on the boards.
early,
It does not get on the
yeah,
boards.
Anyway, I think now I'll take your leave. I said what I had to say about the game. I think today is going to be a good day once again, and barring England would definitely need Joe Root to score a big one because they're really short in terms of experience of their batting, and
yes,
it's not that they have a longish tail what they usually have when they play in England because there's no Archer, there's no Sam Curran, there's no Chris Wokes. You Stuart Broad, Mark Wood, and James Anderson. All three of them really don't bat a lot. I don't know about Robinson's batting because he's making his debut, but the batting pretty much ends at 7 or 8 this time. So it's a huge ask. And if England are not don't lose any wickets in the first session, then we can probably see them getting close to New Zealand's target. But if they do lose any wickets in the first session, then New Zealand could very easily have a lead of around 100 in this test match, and then from there on, England will just have to play for a draw.
yeah.
Exactly. The very good points. The only thing is, I think that we may see James Bracey and and Robertson do well. I think they're going to be charged. It's the first match. They're going to see what Conway's done. They're going to be trying to level best to produce. Admittedly, Robertson got a few wickets, and we'll talk more about his discretions as well. But thank you, Gil, for that. I really appreciate your time. You're bang on an hour, and you've done a fantastic job. As always, Gil, it's a pleasure having you, and you'll be on more, and Monty will be with you very shortly as well. Adam Holyoake and the like, so don't worry about that. Okay?
Thank you. Okay.
All right, Gil. Now, Siddharth, it's you and me. Gil's got a very good cricketing brain. He's one of the Delhi Capital's leading fans as well. He's got a great cricketing brain. I'm glad he was here. I was just going to say that the reality is that I'm pretty sure New Zealand have got one eye on this match, but another eye on the match after, as in the 2 days down the track, 2 games down the track. Of course, I look at the way that the Indian players were so relaxed at Southampton. They've eased into this so-called mini COVID so easily. And being at the ground where they're playing and relaxing, they're going to feel very familiar, even though they're not playing any more than an intra. I think there's an intra-Indian game, isn't it? I think they're playing between each other. But that's, I think more stadiums will now, you'll find, more stadiums will start to have hotels attached.
Hope so, because that will be, if they have to revamp a stadium, for example, I don't know how they'll revamp the stadiums in India, but yes, this might be the future for COVID travel. This might be the future for biosecure bubble security. It is important because you saw in the IPL from bubble to bubble transfer, that's where people got COVID. The bubble was so diligently in India. In England, Restrata, the company that did the biobubble management, they did a fabulous job. I mean, they were not scared to say that one star player violated it. He had to be out of the test match. Jofra Archer. He violated the bubble. He went to some other place to meet his friend, wanted to come back. They said, no, you breached the bubble. You can't play the test match. We need some kind of due diligence like that in India. Where it comes from, I don't know. How the ICC will do it in India, if it happens, I don't know.
Now Munchie who's our local Englishman there, has mentioned that both Southampton, as we know, and Old Trafford have Hilton hotels overlooking the ground. There is also a hotel across the road from Lord's as well, isn't there, Munchie? There's a diagonally across the road. There is a hotel which you could argue is within stone's throw of the ground. Munchie, you may want to mention the name of that hotel. I forgot what hotel name that was. Who said that?
Yeah, some net issues. Sorry.
There's 2 of you. Oh, there's 1 of you. Okay.
Yeah, I know, some net issues.
That's right. So the reality is that there's also a ground at Lord's diagonally across from the nursery end of the ground. I've forgotten the name of it, but that's really, it's only directly across the road. So I think
St. John's Wood, across St. John's Wood.
Yeah, well, not John Wood's side, but the other side, which leads from the let's call it the you have the media centre in front of you. It's to your left, diagonally back towards the left, not to the right is the train station. To the left is this particular hotel. But you haven't experienced the Adelaide Hotel yet? Oh my God, that is 7-star, and it is exquisite. And it looks over the ground. I think from the rooms, it's just mind-blowing, actually. So that's exciting. I wonder, they should do it in the SCG and they should do it in the MCG. Why not? They're big enough, for God's sake. They should have corporate suites which become the hotel rooms. I'm not sure. They should think about doing that.
I think the new Perth Stadium also can become one, that Burstwood. I think that has got good capacity. They can do a hotel right there to accommodate some sections. Maybe reduce the capacity by a few thousand and build a hotel in that particular section.
Absolutely. And then they've got money coming into the stadium every week because people can stay there. So I think there's a lot of merit for that. I think it's, although I'll never forget in Dakar, the stadium they've got there, they've got shops directly below their ground. They're surrounded by shops. It was hilarious. Not hilarious, but they use it entirely as shop fronts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the arrangement will be in the subcontinent, because if you look at it, most of the stadiums are outside of the city center limits. If you look at, with the exception, I might say Colombo is right in the Premadasa is right in the center of the city. Yeah. But then you've got so many of these housing societies there. I don't know how you will build a hotel anywhere near there. But yes, in the Premadasa, there is ample ground to be within the complex. You can build a good motel of sorts, which can accommodate about 70, 80 people. I think that can be done. But in India, I really doubt how they'll do it, because the way how the stadiums have been built, it has not left space for any kind of development elsewhere. The gaps in Chepauk, the surround and open space in Delhi, Wankhede also similar. Where will you build a hotel right in the premises is a very, very big logistical question.
I can never really understand the design of some of the Indian stadiums. These separate stands with gaps. Was it a sense of allowing a breeze to come through? I don't know, but
Yeah,
and they will.
I had gone to the 1998 Test match between India, Australia, and Chennai. It was summer. It was like a concrete bowl. The heat, the humidity would make any known mortal sick.
Yeah,
They build the gaps so that you can get breeze from the Marina
which
Beach.
I get
A
that, but
sea
it's
breeze is a lot better. And even in Mumbai, it was a concrete hovel. There were no seats. It was just those steps, concrete steps. You would just sit there. So, and even
Are you talking?
Kolkata,
Are you talking about Brabourne specifically? Because Brabourne,
Wankhede.
because Brabourne,
Brabon
oh
is
my God,
1,000
oh,
times better, Brabon.
oh, it's incredible. So, okay, that's a great. It's going to be a trend. I'm pretty sure that this will become a part of every stadium now, in any sport. Quite frankly, this need to be on ground makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, Munchie mentioned Dunabus. I'm pretty sure that's the hotel I'm talking about. It's across the road from Lords there. There's a question here from Vasant Narain. He wanted to talk about how can we get Devon Conway out? Can Ashwin be the answers to New Zealand lefties? Definitely. And Sharmi to Shastri before the press. Yeah. I think that, look, my read on the Shastri Virat Kohli interviews, press conferences, which you're no longer able to take and use, I hear. You've got to take bits and pieces out, which is rather silly. I don't know why that is good. So they hinted quite strongly that Siraj would be in the side, did they not?
Yep, they did. But now again, the problem of plenty. Where will they slot each individual in that sense? The main concern is the bowling. You got top-notch bowlers. Bumrah, Shami might be the only certainties. Ishant, you may probably need him because he bowls long spells. He's the workhorse. He can hold one end up and he can get wickets. Old ball, new ball. Siraj probably might be your control bowler up front. Get the wickets, bowl with pace, hostility. Now New Zealand have got so many left-handers. You've got Conway, you've got Latham, you've got Williamson, Taylor, who are the right-handers after that. You've got Henry Nichols. So you've got 3 right-handers and 3 left-handers in the top 6. Colin de Grandome, if you include him. Colin de Grandome. Mitchell Santner is a left-hander, 4. You've got Bolt, Saudi, Wagner. So does Ashwin get into the fit? Yeah, probably. I think my bowling combination would be Ishant, Bumrah, Siraj, Ishant, and Ashwin. I think I see no Jadeja in this.
That's interesting because Munchie, who's in England now, was just alluding to the fact that they're expecting the next few weeks to be very dry in the Southampton region, which could make it more and more, well, it would be a dust bowl, but it could be a lot more conducive to spin. So that could be a telling sign and the fact that the England team are there, not the England team, sorry, the Indian team are there, seeing what's going on, they'll be able to judge it pretty well. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
For a final, though, I'm sorry, I'm a bit romantic about it. I like to see Ashwin and Jadeja in the side because they're a great pairing.
Exactly. I mean, there's no better combination than Ashwin and Jadeja when it comes to the spin twins. But how many have we seen, even if they are spinning tracks, possibly in 2018, with the exception of the Oval, how many pitches have we seen that have employed 2 spinners in England? England, they don't break that much. That's the problem.
No.
So,
but then I don't know whether it's necessarily the amount of spin that those 2 guys will extract because their straight balls are more deadly than they're not, and especially in Jadeja's case, his ability to bowl a very good straight ball that deceives is crucial too. I don't know. I'm not sure. And they've got a New Zealand I know England have actually got the New Zealand spin bowler in their ranks, but I don't know. I'm romantically wanting to see them two together, but
Yeah, because Ashwin, we are just talking about the left-hand factor, Ashwin, but then you forget that he also has a great record against Kane Williamson. Ashwin has a superb record against Williamson as well. So among the Fab Four that we're seeing, with the exception of Kohli, Ashwin has a great record against Smith and Williamson.
that's true.
The left-hander bit is also there, but Ashwin can be a great factor even against Williamson. But yet again, the pitches don't break up that much in England. I mean, you will not see a whooping puff of dust like an atomic bomb, that kind of thing in England. You forget that there is even Akshar Patel. Akshar Patel was the guy who bowled those straight balls and got everybody in trouble in that series. The
So
pitch didn't have anything to do. Yeah.
I mean,
And
look,
Ross Taylor struggles big time against left-arm spin. Ross Taylor, big time.
yeah, I'm still romantically thinking they're going to have Ashwin and Jadeja both in the side, and it could well be Shami and Siraj fighting out one of the spots. I think Ishant Sharma's more of a
Maybe
certainty than.
Yeah, Ishant, Shami, Bumrah, and you have Ashwin Jadeja. Then you won't have the tail so long. Then
But could they afford to have them both in there in four bowlers? Could they afford that? Would that mean you'd have to drop? Well, Fahari would not be there. But could you drop a Rahane? You wouldn't do that?
no.
I'm just
Rahane
thinking out
is
loud.
just so he's very vital, not just as a batsman, but also because of the thinking. He can give so many inputs to Virat. There's also Rohit, Rahane, and Virat. These three form the leadership core of the side. So you have Gill and Rohit. On top of that, you can have Pujara, Kohli, Rahane, Pant. That's your 6. Ashwin, Jadeja, 7 and 8. Ishant, Shami, Bumrah. That's my 11 for Southampton then.
Okay.
Because if you add Siraj in the mix, you'll have to drop one spinner. Then the tail becomes too long from 8, 9, 10, 11. Rather than having only 9, 10, 11, that 8th one might possibly alter the composition a lot more.
I agree totally. What's intriguing to me is it's only one test match. Admittedly, they've got 5 coming up later, but there's an all or nothing attitude to this. The Indian bowlers, despite being a little bit perhaps underdone leading into the match, they can really go for it because they've got a gap post-match and there's nothing before. So they can let themselves go. Bumrah can let himself go and bowl it to his heart's content because he has a distinct amount of time to recover before the next test match. So that's good. That'll suit them.
Yeah, but I think India will want to do well both in the World Test Championship final and England. Because we haven't won for 14 years in England. I mean, we have just won how much? 2 tests in the last 14 years in England. We are playing a neutral test for the...
Hang on, Siddharth. You're getting carried away here. You've just beaten Australia in Australia for yet again and won on the game after 30-odd years. You can't have everything go your way. There's got to be a stumble somewhere. Come on.
Yeah. That's why you have not done well in South Africa. Surprisingly, with the amount of talent that you've got, the batting let us down in South Africa. That's why we lost in South Africa. In England, we have allowed collapses in sessions. That's why if we've lost 4-1, we could have very well won it 3-2 had we not allowed Sam Curran to go wild against us. So we do want, because questions will be asked in 2 aspects. Number 1, has Virat Kohli and the entire team addressed the injury management situation when it comes to 6 tests? Because remember, we have a break of 1 month, but then you're going to play 5 tests in 6 weeks. That is an incredible amount of toll on the body. I mean, the Ashes, they begin from July end and go until September 1st week. That's the same 6 weeks. 5 tests in 6 weeks. So you had to manage the likes of Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins in particular. I'm thoroughly glad that Cummins is not breaking down now. He's improved. We missed 7 years of his talent, and I'm glad he's back and he's doing very well. Because there's no better side than Cummins.
As well. Financially, he's doing girls.
But again, Norman, I mean, I would like to know, everybody, the Aussies are not willing to make themselves available for the second leg of the IPL. Cummins has said no, apparently. England players are also not going to do it. So, Because after World T20, you're the Ashes. For England and Australia, nothing else matters. It's the Ashes from November. So how will they manage that? That is going to be one huge logistical loophole that you'll have to fill up.
I'm very concerned about. We're talking about the IPL. We're talking about the Ashes. We're talking about England in this series. No one's talking about the World Cup. No one's talking about the World Cup. It's almost. Let's be honest. You and I haven't spoken about it for the whole time we've been on. It's almost forgotten. In my opinion, they shouldn't play it this year. In my opinion, they should play it next year. That's my opinion. What's your thoughts?
But then you'll have World Cups every 6 months then, because if you don't play this year, in 2022 you have the Women's World Cup from January to February in New Zealand. You have the Commonwealth Games also. That's where cricket is making its debut. It's making a comeback rather in the women's side again. You have IPL yet again. You also have the World T20 in Australia. You have the World T20 now in 2021. You move it to 2022. Where is the window?
Again,
And in 2023, February to very packed. The calendar is very packed, Norman.
It's scary. It really is. I mean, will the IPL be a lesser finish because of the amount of players that are not playing from England and Australia and probably some from South Africa? That will be a lesser tournament.
It will be. I mean, look, the England and Australia players add tremendous value to the IPL. There's no denying it. But again, how will they fit in that window? I'm just not able to figure out where they will fit in the window. Because India want the World T20 to be held in the country. They don't want it to be held in the UAE. That's why they sought an extension of 1 month in the recent meeting. Again, if you make that mistake, I'm sure by the time COVID cases drop, already it's dropped close to 1 lakh, only 1,000, sorry. It will dip in August. But there is every possibility that it might again surge. We are not taking that into account.
No, that's true.
Now, again, if you make that same mistake of IPL being held in multiple venues, we were scared that there were only 6 venues in the IPL. In the World T20, we've got 9. How will you manage that? And you're saying, we play all in Mumbai. We can't play in Mumbai. The Pakistan factor.
I'm perplexed with the way they're spreading it out. The usage times. I understand it's somewhat, but they've got to maintain some control on the venues. As we said earlier, had the IPL been handled better, would have been better. I'm just putting my mobile on the charger. Hang on a second.
Yep.
Yep. I'm just having to move over here and get my phone. Let's make sure this is backing up. Okay, good. All right. We're back. I'm back. All right. Too many phones. I've got so many. Can you believe this hotel? Can you believe being in a hotel where you've got the leading AFL, the leading rugby league, and union and cricket guy? If I looked hard enough out on the street here, this is notoriously where. I saw George Bailey the other day. Ron Reeks is back. Shane Watson's back. Warner, Smith, Mark Clark, Pat Cummins. They're all floating around here. And they're all floating around here. This is their hangout. You walk into a coffee shop, you look up. I actually did a report yesterday. The backdrop was a very famous little coffee shop called Cully Press. If you ever come to Sydney, go to Cully Press, because that is where the Warner family loves going, because it's got a certain environmentally friendly, organic, blah, blah, blah coffee thing that goes on there. And they love that place. And and Candice is known by her first name there. All the staff know her, so she's a regular there. Okay. And I had my camera focused on that cafe. So if she just happened to walk past by accident, it was funny. It was great. And
lovely.
And AFL players who play Aussie rules, they're all 6'8", 6'9". It's like having 11 Ishant Sharmas. Actually, how tall is Ishant Sharma? How tall is Ishant Sharma?
Ishant is 6'5", 6'6".
These guys are 6'9". So Kyle Jamison height. Scary.
Yeah, Carl Jameson. Yep.
Is it Jamison or Jameson? That was the question that was asked today by the media, actually. I think it's Jamison. I think it's Jameson's
Jameson.
way.
Yeah, Jameson.
Jamison.
J-A-M-I-
But is it Jameson or Jamison? I think they were all calling him Jameson out, doesn't it?
I heard it in New Zealand. They were called Kyle Jameson.
Okay, we'll leave it as that. Because in Australia, we probably would say Jamison. Knowing us, we would probably call.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's about talking about the duel that occurs. India and New Zealand, they are both on neutral grounds. It is true. There's an element. I mean, it's more New Zealand friendly, you would argue, but if it's dry, it could well be more India friendly. I'd say it's going to be. Look, the reality is, it's England, for God's sake. It'll be overcast, raining. It'll be miserable. I can't imagine it being just perfect.
I know.
And Southampton, I've been there for many games. Every time I've been to Southampton, it's been miserable. I've never been to it when it hasn't been. So I find that one a bit hard to believe. All right.
Yeah.
So all right. Okay. Well, what's the talk in India at the moment about the World Test Championship? Are they holding it in high regard? Is it a significant event like a World Cup is, or the IPL for that matter? Is it seen in that same significant way, would you say?
It is. The World Test Championship, there is huge hype around it. So, at least from whatever I am reading and whatever it is, because players are not that accessible, so that's why we can't get anecdotes of them from every single time because of the bubble situation. But yes, we are quietly confident of the results, and the mood is a bit tempered because we know it's New Zealand. There's not much flair or aggression or tension that maybe if it was India, Australia, it would have been at a fever pitch. But it's New Zealand. We know, okay, they're nice guys. Let's just play normally. And let us ensure that even if they win, Indians are not so perturbed because we love the Kiwis. We only have a problem with...
I was going to say that in Australia, we beat New Zealand almost every single time they come to our shores. It's only on their shore that they have a chance. So we've got a real little boy or little son or little brother syndrome with New Zealand. It annoys me for New Zealanders because their rugby is such a statuesque situation. Yet cricket doesn't seem to have. And they keep making finals and they keep being the bridesmaid and everybody seems to be happy. Don't they?
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Oh, yeah, we made the final. We're happy. No. You've got to win it. I want them to. In all honesty, would you prefer New Zealand to win it for the sake of New Zealand? Or
It should. I mean, if New Zealand win, there'll be nothing greater in cricket. We need a new winner apart from Australia, India, England. We need something new for the growth of the game, for the growth of something good. Let a new nation win. I mean, if we have to just have a fact check of who's won most of the ICC events or most of the thing, it's either Australia, it's either India, it's either Sri Lanka for that matter. Sri Lanka won the 2014 World T20. They also won the Champions Trophy, although it was with India. So yes, if a new team wins, I mean, apart from Asia, you have someone in New Zealand winning. It will do so much for the sport. Possibly for once, it might displace rugby of the papers there.
You know what? Quite honestly, I think Australia will be a little bit embarrassed. Australia do not like having, because we're so used to being smashed in the Bledisloe Cup, which is our rivalry with New Zealand. We feel a bit inferior there, but I think we expect to be ahead of New Zealand cricket. So it's going to be exciting. It's exciting if India wins, but it's even equally as exciting if New Zealand wins. It's like two teams. Would you have thought maybe 2 years ago, maybe even 3? Would you have out and out said that New Zealand would be playing India in the World Test Championship final? Would you have said that?
No. Honestly, I'm saying no. Because again, you look at Australia, definitely Australia. Either Australia or England.
Or would it be Australia versus England?
Yeah, but I would have said India would have had a fair chance because they no longer, it's like, oh, we only perform well at home. We don't do well abroad. New Zealand is right now at this stage. They do superbly at home, but they don't do well abroad, whether you would like it or not. So, New Zealand, I wouldn't have said no. I in my wildest of dreams, I never could have imagined New Zealand would be coming. But at the same time, I will say only one thing: New Zealand are here primarily because of luck, the luck factor. Australia were docked 4 points because of their slow over rate. One. They lost the series against India. That helped them immensely. The series against Bangladesh was cancelled. So that is why New Zealand are here due to sheer luck. England lost against India. Had they won, they would have displaced New Zealand.
Yeah, Australia didn't deserve to be there. Australia did not deserve to be there. Full stop. It would have been annoying if Australia got in there, actually. That's my thoughts.
Exactly.
Well, okay, let's get back to today's game. We're at day 3. We've got both Root and Rory Burns in bat, both on pretty substantial scores. Other than those two, you've got Ollie Pope and Lawrence a little bit weak, some newcomers in Bracey and Robertson. You would argue there's a bit of a weakness there in that next 4 batters, which could lead to a very low score if they lose their wickets early. Although I still have this feeling that James Bracey's going to put a big effort in because this is his moment to shine. He has a rare moment to be able to be picked as a keeper and a batter. The reality is that he has Folkes, Butler and Bairstow all in front of him normally. So he's got effectively three keepers out of the side, and he's moved in. That's quite a jump for anyone. So I would have liked to have seen Bracey up the order, actually, to be honest with you. I think I could have afforded having him up the order, but they didn't do that. But anyway, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to this. I'm watching Test cricket more than I ever have for a long time. Are you? Do you find yourself more intrigued with not just India but other teams as well?
Not really. I mean, because see,
No?
Test cricket in its way is great. If you have to look at it from the onslaught of T20, onslaught of other formats, Test cricket holds its own. So I would rather say one thing here. The England-New Zealand test is a bit of a normalcy of what we wanted pre-COVID. So every match that has now been played, England will be your test case. Like, oh wow, this is how life existed pre-COVID. And test cricket is luckily giving it back to us. And ODI and maybe the 100 might do that for England. I don't know. So I would say let the 100 run its course. But test cricket is test cricket for a reason.
I'm loathing this 100. I'm sorry. I've got no interest in it at all, except for novelty value. It's actually going to be sort of annoyingly in between a lot of matches that are rather important. It's a hell of an experiment, if you ask me. It's a hell of an experiment. It breaks all sorts of traditions, and it doesn't. I don't know. Why is it then the 100's only been played in England? If you're going to do it, you're going to have to consider that in other countries, because if you have it just in one place, it's novelty. It's not of any sustainability. I think it already had the sad situation last year not playing at all. This year kind of thwarted availability. I mean, I don't think many Australians will go there unless they're paid a lot.
No.
Why would you go there? Because they're not going to they can't afford to be there. It's going to be a very tempered, lesser tournament.
Yeah. I think it'll be good for the women's game. The women's 100 will be.
Yes, that'll be for sure. And you've got India playing India there with the men's team. Are they staying in Southampton?
Yes, for the time being, they will. I think they will then shift to the county ground in. I think it's in Taunton. I think Taunton also has a hotel nearby. Or Bristol.
Right.
I'm confusing it in Bristol or Taunton. I think in Bristol they have the hotel. They may stay there. So that is why.
And there's a fair bit of excitement around the fact that when we saw the Indians leisurely sitting in their chairs, looking out to the ground, there's a great deal of contentment there, I think. For once, they feel, even though it's still lockdown, it's a bit freer than India, surely. England will feel like a picnic compared to India's lockdown situation.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think once you finish the quarantine period, there is no bubble. That's what I'm thinking. There will be no bubble. So you
Right.
will have a feel of the normalcy that will be there that existed pre-COVID. Number one.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So because I think even England, they are planning. I mean, I don't know. I think Monty debunked that myth yesterday that maybe June 21 they may open everything up. But they have found some Indian variant also in the UK, so that's why they may not open it up so soon. But yeah, you got the Euro coming up, you've got everything coming up there. So it's a big sporting summer in England. Let's not make any mistake about it. They have to do it very carefully. Another spurt, and I think you've had it then.
We had a small, I think it was a 20 or 30 numbered in Melbourne. They went crazy. They locked Melbourne down. All the sporting things left Melbourne. They're all in Sydney. It's a bit of an overreaction, but we're very lucky where we are.
Yeah.
So, okay. So your prediction on this test match, what's your prediction?
For England, New Zealand, or India, New Zealand?
England, New Zealand.
This is the moving day. So England are trailing by 267. Root holds the key. The rest of the batting doesn't have any kind of experience whatsoever. If England are bowled out and New Zealand have a lead of 100, then I would say advantaging New Zealand. But again, if Root hangs in there and there are contributions from the rest, then and if they get a lead of 100 or 150, if England get a lead of 100, 150 over days 3 and 4, then I think England will win this. Again, we don't know the weather, whether it will rain. I don't think it will rain. But if it doesn't rain, then it's advantage England. If they manage to bat well today, that's the key. They should bat well today.
I have no confidence in England getting any more than 250, to be honest with you. I see that Pope, Lawrence will fall pretty cheaply. These two and then they'll go okay, but they'll fall. There'll be a collapse. And I think they'll be lucky to get 250, to be honest. That's my prediction. I think New Zealand will be in the ascendancy, just the way they get matches started. And then India have to bat last. England have to bat last, sorry. Therefore, you'll have a situation where New Zealand with their spinner, who isn't necessarily the best spinner in the world, but it will be an advantage in that situation. No Ben Stokes, no England, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Ben Stokes
Ben
is
Stokes.
extremely... No England. We've got to remember who they've got out. Sam Curran, Stokes, Wokes and Folks. They've got
Butler,
Jofra Archer, Butler and
Bairstow. Yeah.
Seven players that you would argue would all have been in the side. It's quite a hefty amount of players.
They're keeping themselves picked for India.
but we have heard this before, haven't we? 9, 10 players, 11 players out back in Australia. I remember hearing that. And who won that?
Yeah. It was India. Yeah. And I was honestly very surprised. I mean, the Australian team had their entire core. You could argue in 2018 that their batting core lacked Warner and Smith. But here they had the full core. You had Labuschagne, for crying out loud. Manas. You had Manas, Warner, Steve Smith. The 3 core of your batting. And the bowlers, you had Lyon, you had Hazelwood, you had Stark, you had Cummins. What more did you want? But they botched it up really badly.
Yeah, I think we're going to come back. Munchies, first of all, said, don't get too carried away. COVID numbers are, well, okay, we'll see about that. He may have more knowledge there. And Devon Max has got stuck on saying we're underestimating England batting. I don't think so. Dan Lawrence is no certainty. Ollie Pope has been playing well. Okay. But, we'll see. We'll wait and see. And look, you'd have to brace in Robinson. Robinson bowled well. I can't imagine him batting well as well. I find that a bit hard. And he's dropped next match as well for this tweeting stuff.
Yeah.
On Instagram. What do you think of that?
I mean, social media has a very weird way of biting back, isn't it? I mean, I think he said it was out of frustration. It's a low point at this point in time. But I think you have to be very careful when you're a public celebrity. I mean, old tweets can be dug up against you and they can be used against you. So at that time, many of us, when we were in social media, it was 8-9 years ago, no one had that maturity that, we shouldn't post all these things. And I think, unfortunately, Robinson fell foul to that. All of us have done it.
And he wouldn't have expected to play Test cricket at that stage either, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly, 8-9 years ago.
He would have
it's like a It's like a huge time lapse. 8-9 years in the social media field. 8-9 years is a huge Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything changed.
But he has to
How?
walk out the front. He has to do this ridiculous. I'm disappointed. I regret it. It's 8 or 9 years ago. I think first and foremost they should have dealt with this before he played his first Test match. I guess in some ways he's lucky he got to play his first Test match because you
Yeah.
never know if it happened before he might have been able to play at all. So I guess there's a benefit there, but I'm a bit over it. I think that it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. So he's dropped
Yeah.
the next match. He's dropped the next match. Is that right? What does
Yep.
that mean? Is he back? Is he back? Well, is he back in the next series? I don't quite get it.
The message wasn't so clear. I mean, I think that maybe he's been rested. I think that's the right operator word, rested. And then he will play possibly the India-England series, maybe, because you need backup. But with Vokes coming back, with Wood coming back, I mean, again, England have a problem of plenty when it comes to the bowling.
I think Ollie Stone hit bowled particularly well in India, I thought, as well. He was
Ollie Stone bowled really well. Yep. I think in these conditions, he'll be really, really good.
So, okay, your prediction for this match is you're saying that New Zealand will win?
Yes. New Zealand.
Okay. And what about the match after? The next Test match, we won't talk about that too much, but we can't help but jump to the third match, which is the WTC. What do you suggest? What's your gut?
Heart wants New Zealand totally to win because
Heart.
Yeah, the heart and the brain, in my case, both want New Zealand to win because they have had heartbreaks for a very long time, and at least this ICC World Test Championship, if they win, at least the world will start taking them seriously. That's what I want. They should take them seriously. You made it to the 2015 World Cup final. You lost very badly. In 2019, you didn't win. You lost on a technicality. You didn't lose, I might say. You lost on technicality. I would just raise a thing with you, Norman, that if it was Australia at the receiving end, Stoinis threw it and Stokes dived. The ball deflected off it and it went to the fence. Would any of the Australians have said, "Oh, it's okay, bad luck"? They would have fought.
Oh my God!
Isn't it?
Of course, we're dirty. We're dirty cheat, not cheats. We're just dirty sometimes. We don't like being in that situation at all. We do not like. You know what? We've had a sudden spike of viewers. I think because the Test match is about to start, they're all just turning up watching now. So we've had a certain incredible job. I'm going to be careful. Can you hear me still? You still can hear me clearly?
Yep, I can.
All right. Okay. Is it a benefit to New Zealand to play these two Test matches, or is it not for the WTC? What's your honest thoughts?
Honestly, it's very difficult. I mean, yes, it is beneficial. I mean, now New Zealand, the rest of the batting, apart from Conway, they just made 178 runs. You take out Conway and Nichols, it's even lesser. Just two batsmen played. The rest of the batting collapsed. So they have got that one area to iron upon. I think New Zealand have not reached the stage against where India is, where you have that mental strength that, okay, we're not going to play any kind of warm-ups. We're not going to play anything. We'll just play an inter-squad and just head into the field. New Zealand has not reached that stage. So I think these two matches are very important to iron out the flaws in the composition. Because as Virat Kohli said, the batting and the conditions are potent for both teams. Indian bowlers can take 20 wickets, so can New Zealand. That's why. These two tests are very important for New Zealand. But then again, if they're fatigued before the ICC World Test Championship, then you can't help it. You can't help it.
Can you still hear me? Because my headsets have gone, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I actually have a theory that everyone expects New Zealand to be better for the efforts, better for the turnout. Trent Bolt, well, he's not playing either Test match, so he's coming in fresh, which probably mentally I think he needed to do. Yep. I actually think if New Zealand lose one of these matches, or if not both, it could be very damaging to their performances going in. Devon Conway has proven that's massive for him. A one-off, and we all know that he can score big in an early part of the series and taper off. The reality is, I have this sneaking feeling that this may actually go against New Zealand and not for them, because they'll be also thinking, we're better off for this. We're better off for this. We must be better off for this. And then India come out all guns blazing, and then New Zealand will be shocked.
Yeah.
So that's also possible, isn't it?
That is
one
a
of those
problem.
situations that the mental biplane. India have got nothing to lose, really. They're going in after a COVID lockdown. They're going to be relaxed. They've got all guns blazing. It's just one match. They can go for it. They've got a long series ahead of them. They're going to be mentally very fresh, and it'll actually be a situation where I think that it could work in India's favour. I wouldn't be shocked if India just run away with this. I think one of the comments were that India might smash New Zealand. I'm afraid New Zealand still have this bogey on their back about not winning major tournaments. Imagine 2019 in England when they lost that particular match, as we know. Is that going to be on their minds? If they lose one of these test matches, it could be
they might. See, they're back after 2 years in that same place where they lost the final. But I think Williamson and co have not focused on that. They've said what's happened has happened. So the calmness factor is there. And one more thing, New Zealand have never lost to India in England in any format. Even in T20s, even in ODIs, from 1983 when they started playing for the first time till now, they have not lost. New Zealand have not lost to India in England. That will be one huge factor. New Zealand have had the advantage of playing neutral tests. They have played it against Pakistan. India are playing a neutral test for the first time in their history. So they may have 18,000, say 17,900 will be of the Bharat Army, 100 will be of the Beige Brigade there. So, yes, but the conditions, again, will be totally different. It will not be played in Ahmedabad. It will not be played in Wellington. It will be played in Southampton. That adds a different dynamic altogether. But yes, Williamson and co have said that we are okay. What has happened has happened. Let's just move on. That's the key.
Look, as always, Siddharth, I love when you're on with me. You provide such great commentary, so insightful. But do mark my words, Monty Panesar, why don't you, have you got his details?
No.
Oh, do you want me to give it to you? Because Monty's extremely useful to have in an England series.
Yep.
Especially in the 5 test matches. Because I'm going to bring him out to, hopefully bring him down to the Ashes with Sky News. Hopefully everything goes to plan. And I would argue that's one of the... Monty's very insightful, and his experience in India, but also for England in such major tournaments, he's significant. He's bowling. I think he was. You would agree with me. His bowling was underrated. Through his bowling time, his bowling was underrated. He had a lot of. He was quite a sensation, and even to this day, even though he's not 20 anymore, he could still probably outdo some of those other bowlers that are in the mix. I mean, I don't know what else has gone on there, but the reality is he's good enough to be in there, and it's a crying shame because he could have been anything you wanted it to be.
Yeah, now, I mean, the 2012 England win.
15 minutes before the match starts.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes before the match starts. We'll go another 5 minutes, but I just want to discuss a bit deeper about India. In my opinion, I'm very proud of the way India's handled the entire last 12 months. First and foremost, the Australian series was beyond belief. The way they played against England at home, considering all, was beyond belief. The IPL is a bit frustrating from my way of thinking. The way that it was only half played frustrated me. In my humble opinion, I know it won't happen. They should have cancelled it. They should have postponed it. Not postponed. They should have stopped it. They should have cancelled it there and then. Out of respect to all the other things that are going on in the world, they still were able to get half the tournaments out of the way. They would have got a lot of revenue from that. There's something a bit, I would use the word tinny about playing last matches in UAE without Australia, without England players, and probably some Indian players too, who knows. There's a certain half-heartedness to it. Not that they're going to not try, but you play the first bit in India and the last bit in UAE, that's not the same tournament, is it?
It's not, but then again, you got 2,000 crore riding on this tournament. I mean, if you cancel it, it's a 2,000 crore loss. Prior to 2020, because of the tensions with China, Vivo pulled out. So that sponsorship bit also money, the IPL had to bear the loss for it. It was a loss. Let's not make any mistake about it. You've got 2,000 crores riding on it. They will try heaven and hell to just ensure that the tournament is conducted. They are facing the logistics of the window. Where do you slot it in? And this is not as if, it's a normal world. It's the COVID situation. You can't expect the team that finishes the test match on September 14th to immediately start playing on October 16th. September 16th, sorry. It's not possible. You will have to come to the UAE, get yourself quarantined, ensure that the quarantine period is less, maybe 6 days quarantine. But again, even the West Indies players, they have the CPL. That ends on September 19th. Well, I guess I'm not too concerned about the West Indies team because they'll forsake their CPL clubs and come to the IPL. That's no problem. But Australia and England might not be a certainty. South Africa, we don't know what's the situation. Maybe we'll have to fall back upon Sri Lanka, potentially. We'll have to get a lot of Sri Lankan players in. So the BCCI will go heaven and hell to ensure that the IPL has been played. There's no two ways about it. Because too much money at stake, too much.
But my last thoughts on this whole situation is, again, the crucial aspect of what will happen in the World Test Championship to me, and this is the lingering thought I have, and I'm not expecting Ravi Shah to be watching this show, but you never know. My parting words to the Indian team are, get into the nets and learn how to leave the ball. Because the next 6 test matches, and quite frankly, you could include the Australian series or any other series that you're talking about, learn to let the ball go. When India were all out for 36, it was a la England conditions, meaning that the Australians bowled that nice, tight line on off stump. Everybody nicked off. The whole lot of them nicked off. They got 36. That's my biggest fear of any of these games that India will face up to. All of them. Gill, Sharma, Rahane, and Kohli. Those 4 batters, I won't include Pujara because I think he's capable of letting a ball go. Those 4 batters are notoriously men that play the ball out to off stump with a great deal of conviction. And they're likely to get a moving or cutting ball and collect the edge. And with an Anderson and a Broad and quite a few other bowlers, that's where India will come unstuck in any series they play, whether it's 5 test matches or against New Zealand. Again, Bolt and Southey are quite capable of exposing them.
Yeah.
I think it's crucial that they learn to they should be in the nets now, letting balls go, and make the bowler bowl to them, which Anderson will do. He'll bowl a lot of in-swingers as well, but make them bowl to the batters and play the shot, because those 4 crucial batters are going to be the key to India's test. Pujara's the key, but those 4 will be needed very much so. And the only one that I've got confidence about who can handle it is Punt. I think
because
he is a great exponent of when to leave a ball go, but he generally gets the middle anyway. He's somebody who I don't think I honestly think they'll be underdone there. Unless they've spent a lot of time in the nets letting balls go, because I've watched many Indian batting practices, sessions, and I never see them let the ball go. They still play the ball, even in the nets, when the opportunity's there to let the ball go. That's my last parting thoughts on that.
Exactly. That should be the key. Because avoid a session collapse. Because every time India lost, it's been in a session. Adelaide ping ball, it happened on the first session. It was gone. The test match was gone in the blink of an eye. You have it, it's happened regularly in England. That session by session loss. There's one bad session, the whole series is gone. So they'll have to be wary of that. If they don't, because see, the Duke's ball will keep on swinging. If the conditions are overcast, like how it is here, if it's overcast, it'll keep on swinging. And it swings more with the old ball. Let's not wait. It's not just the new ball, like the Kookaburra. It'll keep on swinging. So that needs discipline. Will the Indian batsmen show that discipline? Hope so. England, New Zealand can very well show that discipline. Williamson plays late. He can leave. Taylor, maybe not so. Latham, yes. Conway, yes. Blundell, yes. Others are, again, they don't leave the ball. Jagrandon doesn't leave the ball. He hits, gets out. That's how it is.
our viewers, Siddharth, you must be looking sexy today or something, because our viewer numbers have gone through the roof. There's more coming now than was there at the beginning. Is it the time that people are getting home from work? I'm not sure. Is it that? I'm not sure. But there's more people watching now than people get glued. Maybe the game's about to start. I think both India and the subcontinent are thriving on cricket. This is exciting to watch Test cricket. The fact that you can get out there and have a good look, it's just exciting to be able to watch it. It's been a great Test match so far. It's been a good contest. I think it will continue that way. I most want to see James Bracey do well today, because I think he deserves his opportunities. You've met David Graveney. David Graveney is like the godfather. And do you realise how many people that David Graveney, when Adam Holyoke first came on the show with David there, it was like, oh my God, it's David. Like, bow to David. It was incredible. Same with Monty. That they're, and I even had a chat to Michael Vaughan about it. Michael Vaughan said, oh, David Graveney. He has such a presence. And even, it hasn't stopped with that group. He's continued on as to the current family, the Bracey family. They've all looked up to him. Amazing role. He is an amazing person. Yet again, another person you should be getting in. I'm going to give you David Graveney's number and Monty's number. You should be using them on your programs.
We should.
And I don't mean necessarily anything that you're doing. You should be getting their take when you're writing your articles. Get David Graveney's and Monty's perspective.
Indeed. We should. Yep. Absolutely.
I'm almost scared to let my people go. Do you have something to do? Do you have something to do?
I have a meeting at 3:30 in about 5 minutes time. I have a meeting in 5 minutes time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Close your eyes, Siddharth. I want our audience to close their eyes. What are your 5 wishes of the summer? What are your 5 wishes? What do you hope to see?
New Zealand win the ICC World Test Championship.
Yep, the World Test Championship. 1.
2, no more bio bubbles. 3, Kohli scores hundreds. 4, Bumrah wrecks England. 5, Anderson shows his class.
Good. You've got about. Did you dream about COVID not being here anymore?
I wish. I only wish.
That should have been number 1.
I'm a practical guy. I don't think it's going away in the next 6 months for us, at least here. That's why I wish I was in Australia. If I was in Australia or New Zealand, I would have said that's the first dream. No more COVID.
Siddharth, there's going to be a day when you're going to be sitting next to me here in Australia. Correct? It hasn't happened yet. The day that you come to Australia, as you can talk to Tabashis or Kuntal or Buria, the moment you land, the red carpet will be rolled out. I'm going to pick you up. You're going to be taken care of, shown the sights. We're going to go down to Barrel. We're going to check out Bradman Oval, the Bradman House.
Wow.
We're going to go to the MCG inside out. We're going to go to any inner sanctuary. We're going to meet, hopefully he's still alive, Neil Harvey.
Wow.
We'll have a great day. That would be a fantastic.
Fingers crossed. Okay?
So you have to start to now envisage yourself being here. One of you had 5 dreams you could say for the summer. A 6th is COVID, 7th is perhaps Australia, and having me take care of it.
Of course.
We will sit here. We will sit here and look out to Coogee Beach and watch all the different sports people walking past in the morning.
Hope so. Fingers crossed. Trust in God. Yeah.
We've got 4 minutes before the match starts.
Yep.
And our audience is bigger than ever. This is crazy. They're all watching.
That's great.
Okay, if you're there in the audience now, I want your prediction for this match. I want you to make a comment now on the predictions of who's going to win. I'm thinking New Zealand, so is Siddharth. The World Test Championship, Siddharth's got his heart and head. Not sure what other part of the enemy's left, but both going for New Zealand. I'm still thinking, I think India's still going to do it. New Zealand are going to not handle the pressure of a final. I still think that plays on their mind.
Yep, indeed.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Siddharth. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
If you're available, the time slots are the same for the next few days as well. We'll have Monty and Adam and a few other people floating in and out.
Yeah.
But I'll give you, send me a message about David Graveney and Monty
Sure,
Python.
sure.
All right? You do
Sure,
that.
sure, Norman. Sure,
All right, so
absolutely.
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm doing a
Ciao.
monologue.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yep.
All right?
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
So, everyone, I can talk to you freely now because the volume's pretty bad here, but I can certainly talk to you. I would like you all to make comments, not just in the live chat, but also post this discussion in the actual proper commentary about things that you'd like to see, things you'd like to be added, people you'd like to see come on, people who you're not sure like to come on. I'd like you to talk to me about that in not just the live chat, which is here. I'd like you to do it also in the post comments area. So once the actual discussion finishes, please spend another minute in this chat room area and go post your comments. I like to do it. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. But please, this is an opportunity to help the channel grow and pass it out to the people that you know in your WhatsApp groups and the like, and make sure they're all able to be a part of this. We've got one comment there: why Australians walk bare feet while roaming nearby places? Well, I'm not sure. There's a thing about football meant to be close to the earth or something. Something behind that Neverage saying. I think that's what they're talking about there. Something about close to the earth. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's what they tell me. I think see if there's any reasoning for it, but there probably isn't. So that's one thing. Guys, this is your chance to make comment before I go. Just have a quick look at the scenario there. So you're saying Anil Fernandez is actually saying that England will win. I don't know about that. I don't think England will win. If you're talking about this particular match, New Zealand looking pretty damn good. 378. England are 2 for 11. If they lose several quick wickets, they'll be struggling to make 250 actually. So that's a problem. But the game's about to start now. It's almost 8 o'clock, guys. You probably all want to watch it. So thanks for joining me today. It's Norman Conway from Eyes on Cricket, as you can see. This merchandising gear will be available very soon. Hat, jacket, shirt, and t-shirt, polo shirt, and t-shirt. They'll be all available very soon. So thanks for joining me today. This is Norman Conway signing off from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Conway. Station will be here tomorrow again at the same time. All the best, guys. Thank you very much for joining us.